The snow had stopped feeling cold an hour ago. That was bad. Thora knew enough about dying to recognize the signs, the numbness creeping up her calves, the drowsiness that made her eyelids heavy as stones, the way her thoughts kept drifting like snowflakes caught in wind. She pressed one frozen hand against her swollen belly, feeling the flutter of movement beneath her palm. Still alive, still fighting. Hold on, little one. Just a little longer. But longer until what? Until her body gave out completely? Until the baby decided to come early? Here in this frozen wasteland where they'd both die within minutes? Thora's knees buckled, and she collapsed into a snowdrift at the edge of the tree line. Through the curtain of her tangled auburn hair, she could see lights in the distance, the prestigious Silvercrest Kingdom with its soaring stone walls and torchlit towers. So close, impossibly far. Her wolf whimpered somewhere deep inside, that broken thing that had retreated into silence 3 months ago when Garrett had looked at her with disgust and spoken the words that shattered her world. I reject you as my mate. The memory burned hotter than her frozen flesh. You whore. Garrett's lip had curled as he stared at her newly rounded stomach. That bastard isn't mine. I can smell another male on you. That's impossible. I've never— Garrett, please, get out. His voice had dropped to that alpha command she couldn't disobey, the authority that seized her wolf and made her body move against her will. Get out of my pack, out of my territory. If I see you again, I'll kill you myself. She'd tried to speak, to defend herself, to explain that the baby was his, could only be his, but the rejection had already begun severing the mate bond. The pain had driven her to her knees, her wolf howling in anguish as something fundamental tore loose inside her chest. The pack had watched in silence as she'd crawled to the territory line. No one had helped. No one had spoken in her defense. They'd believed him, believed his lies, and cast her out like trash. That had been 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks of wandering through the wilderness, her belly growing heavier with each day, her supplies running out, her hope dying by degrees. She'd tried 3 different packs, begging for shelter, for mercy, for anything. They'd all turned her away. A rejected mate, pregnant with a disputed child, her wolf broken and silent. She was bad luck, a pariah, untouchable. Thora's vision blurred. Was that from tears or the hypothermia? Did it matter? Please, she whispered to the uncaring sky. Snow drifted down to kiss her upturned face. Please, not me. Save my baby. Please. The words came without thought, bubbling up from some deep place in her memory. Her grandmother's voice, warm and alive, teaching her the old prayers when she was just a girl. Moon Mother, hear my prayer. Star Father, witness my plea. I offer all I am, all I have, all I might become. Take my breath, my blood, my bone. But let this child live. Let this innocent soul see the light of dawn. The ancient words fell from her cracked lips in a cadence older than memory, a rhythm that pulsed in time with her failing heartbeat. Her grandmother had called it the mother's bargain, the prayer of last resort, when a she-wolf stood between her child and death. Let her be strong where I was weak. Let her be whole where I am broken. Let her know love where I found betrayal. This I offer freely, my life for hers, my soul for her salvation, my everything for her chance. Something shifted in the air. Thora felt it ripple across her skin like electricity, raising the fine hairs on her arms despite the numbing cold. The snowfall paused, each flake suspended in the air for one impossible heartbeat. Then the wind picked up, howling through the trees with a voice that sounded almost like singing. Her baby kicked hard against her palm, once, twice, 3 times, urgent, insistent, alive. I'm sorry, Thora breathed, her eyes drifting closed. I'm so sorry I couldn't do better for you. The darkness rose up to claim her, gentle as a mother's embrace. Inside the highest tower of Silvercrest Palace, Oracle Meredith bolted upright in her bed with a scream that shattered 3 glass bottles on her bedside table. "The Mother of Salvation dies at our gates." Her attendants rushed in, hands glowing with healing light, but Meredith shoved them away. Her eyes had gone pure white, the pupils vanished, and when she spoke again, it wasn't her voice, but something older, vaster, that resonated through the stone walls. "The child of prophecy grows cold in her mother's womb. The bloodline fractures. The future breaks. Alpha King, she dies. She dies now." The words thundered through the palace with supernatural force, yanking Flint from his desk where he'd been reviewing trade agreements. His wolf surged to the surface, responding to the oracle's distress with instant alertness. He was moving before conscious thought caught up, his long legs eating the distance through corridors and down staircases. Guards scrambled to follow as he burst through the main doors and into the snowy courtyard, his inner wolf howling with inexplicable urgency. "Find her! Find her! Find her!" "Sire, what—" his captain began, but Flint was already shifting, the transformation rippling through him in a fluid wave of power. His wolf was massive, midnight black with eyes like molten gold, and it knew exactly where to run. The border, the northern tree line. There. His paws thundered across the frozen ground, speed born of desperation driving him faster than he'd run in years. Behind him, his guards struggled to keep pace, but Flint didn't slow. He couldn't. Something vital pulled at his chest, an invisible thread drawing him forward with inexorable force. He smelled her before he saw her, citrus and wild herbs, a scent that struck him like a physical blow and made his wolf howl with recognition. There, half buried in a snowdrift, lay a woman with auburn hair spilled across the white like blood. Flint shifted back to human form and dropped to his knees beside her, his hands, bare and heedless of the cold, brushing snow from her face. She was so pale, too pale. Her lips were blue, her breathing barely perceptible. And she was pregnant. Very, visibly pregnant, her belly round beneath the tattered remains of her clothes. Something cracked open in Flint's chest, a feeling he couldn't name roaring through him with devastating intensity. His wolf lunged against his control, demanding he protect, shelter, defend. This woman, this stranger, who somehow felt like she'd always been meant to be his. "Get the healers," he barked at his captain. "Now, and bring blankets, furs, anything warm. Move!" His hands trembled as he gathered her into his arms, cradling her against his chest. She was so light, too light, her body fragile despite the swell of her pregnancy. Flint's wolf whimpered, pressing close to the surface, desperate to share its heat with her. "Don't you dare," he growled softly, starting back toward the palace at a run. "Don't you dare give up." "Fight, she-wolf, fight." Her head lolled against his shoulder, and Flint felt the faint brush of her breath against his neck. Still alive. Barely. The palace erupted into controlled chaos at his return. Healers swarmed forward, hands already glowing with their gifts, but Flint snarled at them when they tried to take her from his arms. "Led me to the best chambers in the royal wing. She stays with me. Sire, we should take her to the healing rooms." Did I stutter? His alpha command rolled through the corridor, and everyone froze. "Royal wing, now." They didn't argue again. Flint carried his precious burden through marble hallways to the suite adjacent to his own chambers, rooms reserved for the most honored guests, or for the mate he'd never found. He laid her gently on the massive four-poster bed, its silk sheets and velvet coverlets swallowing her small frame. The healers descended, their magic flowing over her in waves of golden light. Flint watched from 2 steps away, every muscle tense, his wolf pacing restlessly beneath his skin. "She's hypothermic," the head healer, an older woman named Sage, reported. "Malnourished, dehydrated. She's been on the edge of survival for some time." Her hands paused over the woman's belly. "The baby is in distress, but alive. We need to warm her slowly, carefully." Too fast could shock her system. Do whatever it takes, Flint said. Save them both. Sage's eyes flickered with curiosity at his vehemence, but she only nodded and returned to her work. It took 3 hours. 3 hours of watching her lie motionless, her chest barely rising with each breath. 3 hours of fighting the urge to crawl onto that bed and wrap himself around her, sharing his body heat, his strength, his life force if that's what it took. 3 hours for Flint to accept what his wolf had known the moment he'd scented her. This woman, this stranger, was his mate. His true mate. The mate he'd been waiting for, refusing all political marriages and alliance offers, despite the pressure from his council. The mate he'd begun to think was just a myth, a fantasy he'd been foolish to believe in. And she was pregnant with another male's child. The thought should have bothered him, should have created some hesitation, some doubt. Instead, Flint's wolf only surged with fiercer protectiveness. Her child would be his child. He would raise it, protect it, love it as his own. Nothing else mattered. She's stabilizing, Sage finally announced, sitting back with exhaustion lining her face. She'll live. So will the baby, though she needs rest, proper nutrition, and absolutely no stress. Flint exhaled, his shoulders dropping as tension bled out of him. Good. That's good. Sire. Sage met his eyes. This woman has been through severe trauma, and not just physical. Someone rejected her. The mate bond was severed recently and violently, and there are other injuries, older ones, that suggest— She paused, choosing her words carefully. She's been hurt, my lord. Repeatedly. By people who should have protected her. A growl built in Flint's chest, low and dangerous. No one will hurt her again. I thought you'd say that. Sage smiled slightly. I'll have clothes brought for her, appropriate to the royal wing. And I'll send up meals, light at first until her stomach adjusts. She'll likely sleep for several more hours. I'll be here when she wakes. Sage opened her mouth as if to argue, then apparently thought better of it. She and the other healers filed out, leaving Flint alone with his sleeping mate. He pulled a chair to her bedside and sat, his eyes tracing the delicate lines of her face. Auburn hair, now clean and dry, spread across the pillow like silk. High cheekbones and a straight nose. Full lips that probably smiled beautifully when they weren't cracked from exposure. She was lovely, but that wasn't what held him captive. It was the feeling that, after 35 years of ruling alone, of being the alpha king without a queen, of having his bed cold and his heart empty, after all that, she was finally here. He reached out slowly, carefully, and took her small hand in his much larger one. Her fingers were still cool, but warming, and Flint felt that pull again, that rightness that hummed through his bones. "Who are you?" he whispered, "and who was stupid enough to let you go?" She didn't answer, lost in healing sleep. But Flint settled in to wait. He was good at waiting, patient, steady. And now, finally, he had something worth waiting for. Thora swam up through layers of darkness, consciousness returning in gradual waves. Warmth. That was the first thing she noticed. Blessed, wonderful warmth seeping into her bones, chasing away the cold that had settled so deep she'd thought it would never leave. The second thing was softness. She lay on something impossibly soft, clouds made solid, cradling her body with gentle care. The third thing was the scent. Pine and wood smoke, clean and masculine, surrounding her like an embrace. Her eyes fluttered open. For a moment, she couldn't process what she was seeing. Vaulted ceilings painted with intricate designs. Massive windows with silk curtains. A fireplace carved from marble. Furniture that looked more valuable than everything she'd ever owned combined. This couldn't be real. This had to be death. Or a dream. Or— Easy. Thora's head whipped toward the voice and her breath caught. A man sat beside her bed, and calling him handsome felt like calling the ocean damp, technically accurate, but woefully insufficient. He was tall, even seated, with broad shoulders that strained against his dark shirt. Black hair fell to his collar, and his face was all strong lines and sharp angles, saved from severity by surprisingly full lips. But it was his eyes that trapped her, golden amber, watching her with an intensity that made her heart stutter. Those eyes widened slightly as they met hers, and Thora felt it, a shock of recognition that jolted through her entire body, settling in her chest with a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire crackling nearby. Mate, her broken wolf whispered, stirring for the first time in months. Mate, 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 no, that was impossible. She'd already had a mate, already been rejected. You didn't get second chances, didn't get to... How do you feel? His voice was deep, roughened with something that made her skin prickle with awareness. Thora tried to speak, but her throat was too dry. The man, because she didn't know what else to call him, immediately reached for a glass of water on the bedside table. He slid one hand behind her shoulders, helping her sit up enough to drink, and his touch burned through the thin nightgown she was wearing. When had someone changed her clothes? The water was cool and perfect, and Thora drank greedily until he gently pulled the glass away. Slowly. You'll make yourself sick. She fell back against the pillows, her hand instinctively moving to her belly. Still round. Still. The baby kicked, strong and insistent, and Thora's eyes filled with tears. Alive. They were both alive. Your child is fine, the man said softly. The healers said so. You're both going to be fine. Who? Thora's voice came out as a rasp. She tried again. Who are you? Where am I? Something flickered across his face, surprise maybe that she didn't know. My name is Flint. I'm the Alpha King of Silvercrest. And you're in my palace, under my protection. Alpha King. Thora's heart lurched. She'd stumbled onto the territory of the most powerful werewolf in the Northern Territories, the king whose reputation for ruthlessness was matched only by whispers of his fairness. A king who could crush her with a thought, who could... Breathe, Flint said, and his hand covered hers where it rested on the blanket. The touch sent electricity singing up her arm. You're safe here. I swear it on my crown and my blood. No one will harm you within these walls. I don't understand. Thora stared at their joined hands, at the way his fingers dwarfed hers. Why would you... I'm nobody. I'm just... You collapsed at my borders half frozen and pregnant. That's reason enough. His thumb stroked across her knuckles, probably without him realizing it. The rest. We can discuss when you're stronger. The rest. Did he feel it too then? This impossible pull between them? I should go, Thora whispered, even though the thought of leaving this warmth, this safety, made her want to weep. I can't stay here. I have nothing to offer in return for... I'm not asking you to offer anything. Flint's voice hardened slightly, not with anger, but with determination. You need healing, rest, proper food. You'll have all of that here for as long as you need. But no arguments. He squeezed her hand gently. Sleep more. Recover. The rest can wait. Thora wanted to protest, wanted to explain that she couldn't accept charity, that she'd only bring trouble, that staying was dangerous for them both. But her body had other ideas, exhaustion already pulling at her, made heavier by the warmth and comfort she hadn't felt in so long. Her eyes drifted closed, and the last thing she felt was Flint's hand still holding hers, his presence a wall between her and the cruel world beyond these walls. For the first time in months, Thora slept without fear. The first 2 weeks in Silvercrest Palace passed in a haze of healing that Thora couldn't quite trust. Every morning she woke in silk sheets that whispered against her skin, sunlight streaming through windows so clean they looked like they held no glass at all. Servants brought her meals on silver trays, warm bread that melted on her tongue, soups rich with herbs she couldn't name, fruits so fresh they tasted like summer. And every day she waited for the price to reveal itself. Nothing came without cost. Thora had learned that lesson carved into her bones. Garrett's affection had cost her dignity, then her pack, then everything. Her grandmother's love had cost her childhood when the old woman died and left her alone. Even her wolf's presence had cost her, its silence after the rejection a constant reminder of her failure. So she kept her walls high, her gratitude quiet, and her heart locked behind iron bars. Flint was becoming a problem. The Alpha King didn't push, didn't demand, didn't exercise the authority he could have wielded like a blade. Instead, he simply appeared. In the library when she sought refuge among the books. In the corridors when she ventured from her chambers. In the gardens when she needed air and space, and the feeling of earth beneath her feet. "The roses are thriving this year," he said one afternoon, his voice a low rumble that made her pulse skip. Thora had been kneeling in the dirt, something the servants had looked scandalized by, her hands working compost into the soil around a struggling jasmine plant. She didn't look up. "They need pruning, and the beds along the east wall have root rot. You know plants. My grandmother had a garden." The words came out flat, defensive. She sat back on her heels, brushing dirt from her palms, finally meeting his amber eyes. "I'm not damaging anything. I'll stop if—" "I'm not asking you to stop." Flint crouched beside her, seemingly unconcerned about the expensive fabric of his trousers touching the ground. "I'm asking if you'd like to oversee the gardens. The head gardener is elderly and keeps threatening to retire. He'd probably weep with joy if someone competent offered to help." Thora stared at him. "Why? Because the gardens need tending and you clearly have the skill?" "No." She shook her head, auburn hair falling across her face. "Why are you being kind to me? What do you want?" Something flickered in his expression. Hurt, maybe, though it vanished too quickly to be sure. "Does there have to be a reason beyond basic decency? In my experience?" "Yes." Flint was quiet for a long moment, his gaze steady on hers. Then he reached out slowly, telegraphing the movement, and tucked the wayward strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers barely brushed her skin, but Thora felt the touch like lightning. "Then your experience," he said softly, "has been with the wrong people." He stood and walked away before she could respond, leaving her kneeling in the dirt with her heart hammering and her wolf whimpering with confused longing. After that, Thora tried harder to avoid him. She took her meals in her chambers instead of the dining hall. She explored the palace only when she knew he'd be in council meetings. She buried herself in the library's extensive collection, losing hours to books about herbs and healing, about wolf histories and pack dynamics, about anything that could distract her from the magnetic pull she felt toward a man who couldn't possibly want a broken, pregnant reject. But Flint had centuries of experience reading people, and he adapted. Books appeared on her bedside table, texts on midwifery and infant care, volumes of poetry in her grandmother's native tongue, a leather-bound journal with blank pages, and a note in bold handwriting. "For your thoughts, if you wish to preserve them." He never mentioned the gifts, never asked if she liked them. Just left them like breadcrumbs, small kindnesses that accumulated despite her resistance. And he watched her. Thora felt his gaze like a physical weight when she walked the gardens, humming old songs to her unborn daughter. She caught him standing in the library doorway more than once, his expression unreadable, before he turned away without entering. Once, she'd fallen asleep in a window seat overlooking the mountains, and had woken to find a blanket draped over her shoulders and Flint's scent lingering in the air. It was terrifying. Not because she feared him. Somehow, impossibly, she didn't. But because she was starting to trust him, and trust was the most dangerous thing she could offer. "You're being stubborn," came a new voice one morning as Thora sat in the gardens, her hands resting on her belly. She turned to find a woman approaching, tall and elegant, with the same black hair and amber eyes as Flint, though her features were softer, more delicate. She wore riding clothes and moved with the confident grace of someone who'd never questioned her place in the world. "I'm Celeste," the woman said, settling onto the bench beside Thora without invitation. "Flint's sister. And you're the mysterious she-wolf who's got my brother tied in knots." "I'm not, I haven't," Thora's cheeks heated. "I'm just a guest." Hmm. Celeste's eyes sparkled with amusement. "Is that why he's rearranged his entire schedule to coincide with your routines? Why he's turned down 3 marriage proposals in the last week? Not that he was going to accept them anyway, but usually he at least pretends to consider it for political appearances. He's the Alpha King. What he does with his time is none of my concern." "Goddess, you really are stubborn." Celeste laughed, the sound bright and warm. "Look, I'm not here to pressure you. I just wanted to meet the woman who finally made my brother remember he has a heart. He's been alone too long, Thora, waiting for something he was starting to think didn't exist." "I'm pregnant with another man's child," Thora said bluntly. "I'm a rejected mate. My wolf is broken. I can't be what anyone's waiting for." Celeste's expression softened. "Did you know Flint can bench press a full-grown elk? I've seen him negotiate peace between packs that had been blood feuding for decades. He once stared down a challenge from 5 alphas simultaneously and made them submit without drawing blood." She leaned closer, her voice dropping. "And I've watched him spend 20 minutes working up the courage to ask if you prefer white roses or red." Thora's breath caught. "I'm not telling you what to feel," Celeste continued. "I'm just saying that maybe your past doesn't define your future. And maybe the man who looks at you like you hung the moon deserves a chance to prove he's different." She stood, brushing off her trousers. "Also, he's hosting a gathering tomorrow night. Just family and close allies, nothing formal. You should come. Hiding in the gardens won't make your problems disappear." She walked away before Thora could refuse, leaving her alone with her thoughts and the baby doing gymnastics against her ribs. The gathering. The thought made Thora's stomach clench with anxiety. She'd been avoiding exactly that kind of situation: crowds, scrutiny, questions she didn't want to answer. But Celeste was right about one thing: hiding wouldn't protect her forever. "And maybe," whispered a treacherous part of her heart, "it was time to stop running." The dizzy spell hit without warning. Thora had been in the library, her refuge, her sanctuary, reaching for a book on the higher shelves. One moment she was stretching up on her toes, the next, the world tilted sideways and her knees buckled. Strong hands caught her before she fell. "Easy, I've got you." Flint's voice rumbled against her back as he steadied her, his arms wrapping around her waist, carefully, so carefully, avoiding putting pressure on her belly. "When's the last time you ate?" "This morning." Thora's head swam, black spots dancing in her vision. "I'm fine. Just stood up too fast. You're pale as snow." He guided her to a nearby chair, crouching in front of her so they were eye level. "Stay there. I'm getting a healer." "No." Thora grabbed his wrist before he could stand, her fingers barely circling half its width. "Please. I'm fine. It's just, the baby's been active today. Takes a lot of energy." Flint's gaze dropped to her belly, visible now even through the loose dresses the palace seamstresses had made for her. "She's strong." "How do you know it's a she?" "I don't." A small smile tugged at his lips. "But you always say she when you think no one's listening. You sing to her in the gardens." Heat flooded Thora's cheeks. "I didn't think anyone could hear." "I have excellent hearing." His hand hovered near her belly, hesitant. "May I?" Thora's breath stopped. It was such a simple question, but loaded with implications that made her heart race. Garrett had never wanted to touch her belly, had recoiled from her pregnancy like it disgusted him. And here was an alpha king, the most powerful wolf in the territory, asking permission as if she had the right to refuse him anything. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Flint placed his palm against the swell of her stomach, his hand large and warm through the fabric of her dress. For a moment, Nothing happened. Then the baby kicked, hard, directly into his hand, and Flint's eyes widened with wonder. She's got a strong spirit, he murmured, his thumb stroking in a gentle arc. Like her mother. Thora couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The intimacy of the moment wrapped around them like a cocoon, the massive library fading until there was only this. His hand on her belly, their daughter responding to his touch, and the mate bond humming between them like a living thing. Flint, I know you're scared. He looked up, his amber eyes intense. I know you've been hurt. I know you don't trust this, don't trust me. But Thora. His other hand came up to cup her face, his touch achingly gentle. I would burn my kingdom to ashes before I let anyone hurt you again. You and this child, you're mine to protect. Not because of duty or obligation, because you're mine. The words should have frightened her, should have felt possessive, controlling, like Garrett's commands that had stripped away her autonomy. Instead, they settled over her like a blanket, warm, safe, a promise wrapped in steel. I can't give you anything, Thora whispered, tears pricking her eyes. I'm broken, my wolf won't come. I can't even. You're not broken! Flint's voice was fierce. You're healing. There's a difference. The baby kicked again, as if agreeing, and despite everything, the fear, the uncertainty, the walls she'd built so carefully, Thora felt herself start to crack open. Maybe Celeste was right. Maybe hiding wouldn't save her. Maybe the only way forward was through. The ballroom glittered like something from a dream. Chandeliers cast warm light across polished marble floors, and the 50 or so guests, family and trusted allies, as Celeste had promised, moved in elegant patterns, their conversations a low hum beneath the string quartet playing in the corner. Thora stood in the doorway wearing a dress of deep green velvet that the seamstresses had adjusted to accommodate her belly, her hair braided and coiled at the nape of her neck. She felt exposed, vulnerable, every instinct screaming at her to retreat to the safety of her chambers. Then Flint appeared at her elbow, devastating in formal black, and offered his arm. You look beautiful, he said quietly. But if you're uncomfortable, we can leave. Number. Thora straightened her spine, drawing on reserves of courage she'd thought depleted. I'm tired of hiding. Pride flashed across his face, and he led her into the room. The next hour passed in a blur of introductions, pack allies and council members, Flint's extended family, wolves whose names blurred together in Thora's nervous mind. They were polite, even warm, though she caught the curiosity in their eyes, the questions they were too courteous to voice. She was accepting a glass of fruit juice from a servant when the ballroom doors opened again, and the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Garrett strode in like he owned the space, his beta and 2 warriors flanking him. He'd always been handsome in a conventional way, golden hair, blue eyes, the kind of symmetrical features that turned heads. Now, seeing him again after months, Thora felt only cold disgust. Flint's hand found the small of her back, steadying as Garrett's gaze locked onto her across the room. Alpha King, Garrett's voice carried, drawing the attention of nearby guests. I've come to petition for the return of my mate. The room went silent. Flint's hand didn't move from Thora's back, but she felt his wolf rise to the surface, power rolling off him in waves. Your mate? Thora. Garrett gestured toward her, his expression arranged in false concern. She's confused, sick. The pregnancy has addled her mind. She left our pack against my wishes, and I've come to bring her home. You rejected me, Thora said, her voice shaking but audible. You called me a whore and threw me out. You were hysterical. I was angry. Garrett took a step forward, and Flint moved to put himself partially between them. I forgive you, Thora. Come home. We'll work this out. There's nothing to work out. You severed the bond, a mistake I'm willing to repair. His eyes hardened. That child is mine. I have rights. You have no rights here. Flint's voice was soft, deadly. Thora is under my protection. She stays or goes by her choice alone, not yours. With respect, Alpha King, this is a pack matter. You're harboring another Alpha's mate and his unborn child. She's not your mate. You rejected her. A rejection made in anger and since recanted. By pack law, this is my territory. My laws supersede yours. Flint's eyes glowed gold, his alpha presence flooding the room with enough force that several guests stepped back. And my law says Thora decides. Garrett's jaw clenched, his carefully constructed concern cracking to reveal the anger beneath. The child is cursed. Ask your oracle. That's why I rejected her. The baby is an abomination and she's dangerous. Cursed? Celeste's voice cut through the tension. That's convenient. Is that what you're telling people? It's the truth. Garrett addressed the room now, playing to the audience. The child manifests strange power even in the womb. My pack's healer warned me. I had to cast Thora out to protect my people. And now she's here, putting all of Silvercrest at risk. Murmurs rippled through the gathered wolves. Thora felt her cheeks burn, shame and fury warring in her chest. He was twisting everything, making himself the victim, the hero, while painting her as enough. Flint's command cracked like thunder. You've had your say. Now leave, not without my child. Leave, now, before I forget the rules of hospitality. For a moment, Garrett looked like he might push further. Then something shifted in the air, a prickling awareness that made Thora's skin crawl. She saw movement from the corner of her eye, a figure separating from the guests, hand moving too fast. Flint. The warning came too late. Silver flashed in the chandelier light, a blade whistling through the air toward her heart. Thora froze, pregnant and slow, knowing she couldn't dodge in time. Flint moved like lightning. He yanked her behind him and caught the blade. Caught it, his hand wrapping around the silver edge, even as it sliced into his palm. The assassin, a noble Thora vaguely recognized from earlier introductions, jerked back on the weapon, and the blade carved deeper into Flint's flesh. The scent of burning skin filled the air as the silver reacted with his werewolf blood. Chaos erupted. Guards surged forward, seizing the assassin. Garrett was shouting something, his warriors moving, but Thora only saw Flint, blood streaming down his wrist, his face gone pale with pain as he held onto that blade to keep it from reaching her. "You're hurt," she gasped, reaching for him. "You're safe." He let the guards disarm the assassin, his injured hand hanging at his side. "That's all that matters. Flint." His knees buckled, and Thora moved on instinct, catching him as best she could, her pregnant belly making it awkward. His weight overwhelmed her immediately, and they collapsed together, her body cushioning his fall. "Healers!" Celeste's voice rang out. "Now!" Thora cradled Flint's head in her lap, pressing her hands to the wound on his palm, even though she knew silver poisoning was beyond her ability to treat. He'd been burned from the inside, the silver reacting with his wolf, and his breathing was already labored. "You idiot," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You stupid, noble idiot. Worth it." His eyes, clouded with pain, found hers. Always worth it. Then the healers arrived, pulling him from her arms, and Thora sat in a spreading pool of his blood, watching them work with glowing hands and desperate magic to save the Alpha King who'd sacrificed himself for a broken she-wolf he barely knew, the man who'd called her his, her mate. Thora refused to leave Flint's recovery chambers. The healers protested. Silver poisoning required intensive treatment. The wounds needed constant attention. The Alpha King should be allowed to rest. She ignored them all, planting herself in a chair beside his massive bed and glaring at anyone who suggested she go. On the third night, Celeste brought her a pillow and blanket without comment. Flint drifted in and out of consciousness, his fever spiking and falling as his body fought the silver's corruption. When he slept, Thora kept watch, her hand wrapped around his uninjured one, willing her strength into him through touch alone. When he stirred, she was there with water and soft words, soothing him back to rest. Lonely, he mumbled during a fevered spell, his eyes unfocused. So lonely. Crown weighs, heavy when you wear it alone. Shh. Thora smoothed his sweat-dampened hair back from his forehead. You're not alone. I'm here. Waited so long. Thought maybe, not real, just a story. What's a story? True mates. His hand tightened on hers with surprising strength. Everyone said, settle, take a political match, breed heirs. But I couldn't. Not when she was out there somewhere. Not when my wolf knew. His voice trailed off into incoherent murmurs, but Thora's heart cracked open with understanding. He'd waited for her, refused countless matches, endured pressure and criticism, held on to faith when everyone told him he was chasing myths. And when she'd finally arrived, broken, pregnant, convinced of her own worthlessness, he hadn't hesitated, hadn't questioned whether she was worth the wait. He'd simply known, the way she was starting to know, that some bonds transcended logic. I'm not worth this, she whispered to his sleeping form. I'm not worth your sacrifice. But even as she said it, her wolf stirred again, that broken thing uncurling slightly, responding to the mate bond with tentative hope. By dawn on the fourth day, the fever broke. Thora had dozed off in her chair, her head resting on the edge of Flint's bed, when she felt gentle fingers threading through her hair. She jerked awake to find him watching her, lucid and clear-eyed despite the exhaustion lining his face. You stayed, he said softly. Of course I stayed. The words came out sharp, defensive. You nearly died protecting me. Worth it. Stop saying that. Thora sat up, wiping at her eyes. Nothing's worth dying for. You are. He shifted, wincing as the movement pulled at his bandaged hand. Your daughter is. And I'd do it again without hesitation. Why? The question burst out of her, raw and desperate. Why do you care so much? I'm nobody. I'm a reject. My wolf is broken. I'm carrying another man's child. I bring you nothing but trouble. Why? Because you're my mate. Flint's voice was calm, certain. Because the moment I caught your scent in that snowbank, my wolf recognized its other half. Because I've been the Alpha King for 35 years, and I've never felt complete until you woke up in my palace and looked at me with those storm-gray eyes. Thora's breath hitched. You can't mean that. I've never meant anything more. He reached for her with his good hand, and she let him take hers, his fingers warm and solid. I know you're scared. I know Garrett broke something in you when he rejected you. But Thora, he paused, holding her gaze. He was never your true mate. Just a placeholder, a mistake, a wrong turn on the path to finding me. I'm pregnant. And I'll love your daughter as my own. I already do. My wolf won't come. She will. When she's ready. When you're healed enough to let her out. I'm broken. You're not broken. Flint cupped her face with his good hand, his thumb brushing away the tears streaming down her cheeks. You're wounded, you're healing, but you're not broken, and you never were. Your first mate didn't reject you because something was wrong with you. He rejected you because he wasn't strong enough to recognize what he had. The words settled into the cracks in Thora's heart, filling spaces she'd thought would stay empty forever. I'm terrified, she whispered. So am I. He smiled, just slightly. You think it's not terrifying? Realizing the most important person in your world is someone who could destroy you with a word? Who could leave and take your heart with them? I wouldn't. But you could. That's what makes it real. His thumb traced her cheekbone. I'm asking you to stay, Thora. Not as a guest. Not as someone under my protection. I'm asking you to stay as my mate, my partner, my queen. To let me court you properly. To give us a chance. Thora's wolf surged, no longer silent, but howling with desperate joy, urging her to accept, to claim, to finally say yes to something good. But the logical part of her brain, the part scarred by betrayal, pushed back. "There are nobles who want me dead," she said. "Garrett will come back. And your oracle. She talked about my daughter like she's some kind of prophecy. I bring you nothing but danger. Then we'll face it together. Your kingdom will be stronger with you in it. Flint, stay." He leaned forward, his forehead touching hers. "Please, stay and let me prove I'm different. Let me prove we're meant for this." And in that moment, with his hand cradling her face and his amber eyes steady on hers, Thora felt the last of her walls start to crumble. "Okay," she breathed. "Okay." His smile was like sunrise breaking over mountains, brilliant, warm, full of promise. Then he kissed her, soft and careful, a question and an answer all at once. When they finally pulled apart, Thora was smiling through her tears, and for the first time in months, the future looked like something other than an endless winter. The council chamber was carved from black marble, its walls lined with tapestries depicting Silvercrest's history. Thora sat in a chair near the door, not at the table itself, as she'd refused that honor, and watched 12 nobles argue about her fate. 3 weeks had passed since the assassination attempt. Flint's hand had healed, though silver scars now marked his palm. The assassin had confessed under interrogation, revealing a conspiracy that reached deeper than anyone had anticipated. 6 noble houses aligned against Flint's progressive policies, seeing Thora as the weak point they could exploit. And now, those same houses were delivering their ultimatum. She must go. Lord Voss, eldest of the conspirators still at large, slammed his hand on the table. "Every day she remains is a day closer to civil war. Our people are divided. Half see her as the king's chosen mate, half see her as a pregnant whore who's manipulated her way into power." "Watch your tongue," Flint growled, his alpha presence filling the room. "Truth is truth, sire." Lady Morwen, sharp-faced and calculating, picked up where Voss left off. "We don't dispute your right to choose your mate, but the timing is catastrophic. She arrives pregnant and rejected. Garrett spreads rumors about a cursed child. An assassination attempt happens at a gathering meant to introduce her to your allies. The kingdom is fracturing. Then we deal with those spreading lies and making attempts on her life," Celeste said from her position at Flint's right hand. "We don't capitulate to threats. This isn't about capitulation. It's about survival." Voss leaned forward. 6 houses are preparing to withdraw their allegiance. That's a third of our military strength. If they move against you, the other houses will be forced to choose sides. Silvercrest will tear itself apart. Because of one woman? Flint's voice was dangerously soft. Because of what she represents. Change. Uncertainty. A break with tradition that many aren't ready to accept. Oracle Meredith, silent until now in the corner of the room, suddenly gasped. Her eyes went white, and when she spoke, her voice carried that otherworldly resonance that raised the hair on Thora's neck. "The child is of 2 worlds, life and death, creation and destruction, salvation and ruin. She will unite or shatter the pack structure itself, remake the werewolf world in fire and truth. Those who fear change will fall before her. Those who embrace her will rise." The oracle slumped, her eyes returning to normal, leaving the room in stunned silence. "So it's true," Voss said quietly. "The child is prophesied. That makes her a target for every power-hungry alpha in existence. Every faction will want to control her, kill her, or use her. And they'll go through all of us to get to her. Then we protect her," Flint said. "At what cost?" Lady Morwen's expression was almost sympathetic. "How many of your people die in the process? How much blood gets spilled? Your sire, you've been a good king, fair, strong, but you cannot sacrifice your entire kingdom for one woman, even if she is your mate." The words hung in the air like poison. Thora felt each one land in her chest, heavy as stones. She'd known this was coming, had felt it building like a storm on the horizon, but hearing it laid out so starkly made it impossible to deny. Her presence was destroying Flint's kingdom. "Give us time," Flint said. "Let me hunt down the remaining conspirators, shore up our defenses. We don't have time." Voss pulled out a scroll, unrolling it on the table. "This is a letter from the 6 houses. They're giving you 1 week. Send the woman away or they withdraw. And when they do, Alpha King, your reign ends. Not immediately, not obviously, but slowly, surely, as your power base erodes and your kingdom fractures into warring territories. So your solution is, I throw my pregnant mate into the wilderness to save political face? Our solution is you prioritize thousands of lives over one." Flint stood so fast his chair toppled backward. "Get out! All of you! Before I forget, you're supposed to be under my protection." The nobles filed out, some looking relieved, others troubled. Only Celeste remained, her expression devastated. "Don't look at me like that," Flint said. "Like what?" "Like you think they're right." Celeste sighed. "I think they're presenting an impossible choice. And I think no matter what you decide, someone you love gets hurt." She left, closing the door softly behind her, leaving Flint and Thora alone. For a long moment, neither spoke. Thora's hands rested on her belly, feeling the strong kicks of her daughter, the prophesied child who would reshape the world. She'd thought reaching Silvercrest meant safety, meant survival, meant the end of running. She'd been wrong. "I won't send you away," Flint said finally, crossing to kneel in front of her chair. "I don't care about their ultimatums. I don't care about civil war. You and your daughter are mine to protect. And how many people die for that protection?" Thora cupped his face, memorizing the lines of it. "How many families lose sons and daughters because you refuse to let me go? That's not your burden to carry." "Yes, it is." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "My daughter is already causing war, and she hasn't even been born yet. What happens when she arrives? When her power manifests? How much blood gets spilled trying to control or kill her? We fight. We survive. We—" "You told me once that you've been lonely," Thora interrupted. "That the crown weighs heavy when you wear it alone. But Flint, what good is a queen if her presence topples the kingdom? Don't." His hands gripped her knees. "Don't do this. If I stay, your kingdom falls. If I go—" She drew a shaky breath. "If I go, maybe they'll leave you alone. Maybe you can rebuild without me as a target on your back. I don't want to rebuild without you. I want you here, beside me, where you belong." "I know." Thora leaned down, pressing her forehead to his. "I know. And that's why I have to go." "No." "Yes." She kissed him, pouring everything she felt into it, love and regret and desperate hope that somehow, someday, they'd find their way back to each other. "You're a good king, Flint. Don't let me make you a bad one." She stood, stepping around him before her courage failed. "Thora, I'll leave tonight, quietly. No one needs to know until I'm gone. I'll follow you." Flint's voice was raw. "Wherever you go, I'll find you." "No." She turned at the door, memorizing the sight of him, the Alpha King on his knees, heartbreak written across his features. "You'll stay here and be what your people need. That's what good kings do. They sacrifice. I don't want to be a good king if it means losing you. Then be a great one instead." Thora smiled through her tears. "Be the king who chose his people, even when it cost him everything. Be the king who let his mate go because he loved her enough to want her safe." She left before he could respond, before she could see the expression on his face, before her resolve shattered completely. The pre-dawn darkness was absolute as Thora slipped through the garden gate, a borrowed pack on her back containing supplies she'd stolen from the kitchens. She wore travel clothes and sturdy boots, her hair braided and pinned up, her belly hidden beneath a thick cloak. In her pocket was a letter, written on the journal pages Flint had given her weeks ago. Flint, I'm sorry. I know you'll be angry. I know you'll want to follow. But please, for both our sakes, don't. You gave me something I'd stopped believing in, hope. You showed me kindness when I'd only known cruelty. You looked at me like I was precious when I felt like refuse. In the few weeks I've known you, you've given me more love than I received in years with Garrett. But love isn't always enough. Sometimes love means letting go. Your kingdom needs you. Your people need you. And my daughter needs to be born somewhere safe, away from prophecies and politics and people who want to use or kill her. Maybe someday, when the danger has passed and the kingdom is secure, we'll find each other again. Maybe the Moon Mother will grant us a second chance at the happiness we almost had. Until then, know that you weren't wrong. You are my true mate. You always will be. I love you. That's why I'm leaving. Forever yours, Thora. She'd left it on his desk in his private study, weighted down with the silver rose he'd given her last week. A courtship gift she couldn't bear to take with her. Now she walked into the wilderness alone, her heart breaking with each step, her wolf howling in anguish at leaving their mate. But she kept walking, because sometimes loving someone meant choosing their kingdom over your own heart, even when it destroyed you. Flint found the letter at dawn. He'd spent the night in futile rage, pacing his study like a caged wolf, trying to convince himself that Thora wouldn't actually leave, that she'd see reason, that their mate bond would hold her here despite her noble intentions. The silver rose sitting atop the folded parchment shattered that delusion. His hand trembled as he lifted the pages, recognizing the journal he'd given her. Seeing her careful handwriting flowing across lines he'd hoped would hold happy thoughts instead of goodbye. Each word was a knife between his ribs, precise and devastating. I love you. That's why I'm leaving. The paper crumpled in his fist. Celeste! His roar shook the windows, rattled the shelves, sent books tumbling to the floor. His sister burst through the door seconds later, still in her nightclothes, a blade in her hand. What's wrong? Are we under… She stopped, seeing his face. Oh no. She left. Find her. Flint's voice dropped to something deadly quiet, more terrifying than his shout. Mobilize every tracker we have. I want search parties in every direction. Now. Flint. Now, Celeste. She fled. Flint stood alone in his study, the letter clutched against his chest, and felt something crack open inside him. The mate bond burned like molten silver in his sternum, pulling northwest with insistent urgency. Thora thought she was protecting him by leaving. She thought her absence would save his kingdom. She was wrong. The throne room was packed when Flint strode in an hour later, every noble who'd delivered the ultimatum present along with dozens of witnesses. He'd called this gathering with a single word sent through the mind link all alphas shared with their council: assemble. The command in that word had been unmistakable. Flint took his seat on the obsidian throne, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. His alpha presence flooded the space, heavy and oppressive, making the weaker wolves' knees buckle. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Thora is gone. She left last night, alone, pregnant, because you convinced her that her presence would destroy my kingdom. He leaned forward, his amber eyes blazing. Tell me, Lord Voss, how does it feel to terrorize a pregnant woman into exile? Voss's throat worked. Sire, we only presented facts. You presented an ultimatum designed to force my hand. You used fear and politics to manipulate her into sacrificing herself. Flint stood, descending the throne's steps with predatory grace. And in doing so, you revealed yourselves. We don't understand. The conspiracy, the assassination attempt, the rumors about a cursed child. Flint's smile was all teeth. Did you think I wouldn't investigate? That I wouldn't uncover which houses funded the assassin, which nobles spread poison about my mate, which of you plotted to use her as a weapon against me? The color drained from Voss's face. Your Grace, we can explain. No explanation necessary. Flint pulled a sheaf of documents from his jacket, tossing them onto the council table. Signed confessions from 3 of your co-conspirators. Financial records showing payments to the assassin. Letters detailing your plans to fracture my kingdom and seize power in the chaos. His eyes swept the room. 6 houses, you said, all threatening to withdraw allegiance if I didn't send Thora away. Interesting how those same 6 houses are the ones funding rebellion. Silence, thick and suffocating. So here's my decree. Flint's voice rang out, clear and final. House Voss, House Morwen, House Blackthorn, House Cray, House Fenwick, and House Stone. You are stripped of your titles, your lands, and your positions. You have until sunset to gather your immediate families and leave Silvercrest territory. Return and face execution for treason. You can't. Lady Morwen started. I'm the Alpha King. I can do whatever I damn well please. Power rolled off Flint in waves, his wolf surging so close to the surface, his eyes glowed pure gold. You wanted civil war? You wanted to force my hand? Congratulations, you've succeeded. But the war won't be what you expected. It'll be me hunting down every traitor who thought they could use my mate against me. He turned to address the remaining nobles, the ones who'd stayed silent during the ultimatum, whose loyalty he'd verified through investigation. Thora is my true mate. The prophesied child she carries is under my protection. Any wolf, any creature who harms them will face the full wrath of the Silvercrest Kingdom. I'm offering a reward of 10,000 gold pieces for information leading to their safe return. And I'm declaring this before the Moon Mother herself. I would burn my crown to ash before I let Thora face the world alone again. Gasps rippled through the assembly. An Alpha King didn't make declarations like that lightly. To invoke the Moon Mother was to bind oneself with magic older than memory, to turn words into unbreakable vows. Flint had just tied his fate to Thora's in front of witnesses, making it impossible to unmake. Celeste. He turned to his sister. You have command of the kingdom in my absence. Rule wisely. Her eyes widened. Your absence? I'm going after her. He was already moving toward the door. And I'm not returning without my mate. The mate bond pulled him northwest through territories he could navigate blindfolded. Flint pushed his wolf hard, covering in hours what would take normal travelers days. His most loyal guards, 10 warriors who'd served him for decades, ran at his flanks, their pace relentless. They stopped only when necessary, pausing to send ravens carrying Flint's decree to every pack within 1,000 miles. The messages were identical, written in his hand, sealed with his royal mark, the she-wolf. Thora, pregnant and auburn-haired, is the true mate of Alpha King Flint of Silvercrest. She and her unborn child are under the king's personal protection. Any who offer them shelter will be rewarded. Any who offer them harm will be destroyed. This is not a request. This is law. By the second day, replies started arriving. Most pledged support. A few offered sightings, a pregnant woman heading into the mountains, alone, moving with desperate determination. One message from a neutral territory Alpha included a warning. Garrett of the Shadowpine Pack has been seen mobilizing warriors. He's heading northwest. Whatever his intentions, they aren't peaceful. Flint's wolf snarled, rage and fear warring in his chest. Garrett, the bastard who'd rejected her, cast her out, and now thought he could claim her again. The male who'd broken Thora's heart and shattered her confidence. If he touched her, Flint would tear him apart. Double our pace, he commanded, and his guards obeyed without question. The mate bond burned hotter with each mile, pulling him onward like a lifeline. Sometimes he felt flashes through it, exhaustion, determination, fear. Thora was running, hiding, trying to stay ahead of pursuers she knew were coming. She didn't know her mate was one of them. Hold on, Flint thought, pouring every ounce of love and desperation into the bond. Hold on, my heart. I'm coming. The cave was more shelter than comfort. A shallow depression in the mountainside, barely deep enough to escape the wind. Thora had found it 3 days into her flight, her body already exhausted, the baby sitting low and heavy in her belly. She'd known something was wrong that morning when the first contraction hit. Too early. The baby wasn't due for another 6 weeks, but stress and malnutrition and endless walking had apparently convinced her daughter that now was the time. Thora had barely made it to the cave before her water broke, soaking through her clothes in a warm rush that left her gasping. Now, as a blizzard howled outside and night fell like a curtain, she knelt on her cloak and tried not to scream. Not yet, she panted, hands braced against the cave wall. Please, little one, not yet, just a little longer. Another contraction seized her, vicious and relentless, and Thora's vision whited out. When it passed, she collapsed onto her side, trembling and soaked with sweat despite the cold. This was how she'd die. Alone in a cave, giving birth to a daughter who wouldn't survive the night. All her running, all her sacrifice, all her desperate attempts to keep them safe, it would end here, in blood and agony and bitter cold. I'm sorry, she thought to Flint, hoping the mate bond carried her words. I'm so sorry. The baby kicked hard, a sensation so strong it made Thora gasp. Then again, and again, a drumbeat against her ribs that felt almost like urgency, insistence. Fight, something whispered in the back of her mind. Not her conscious thought, but something older, deeper. Fight, daughter of my blood. Rise. Thora's wolf, silent and broken since Garrett's rejection, suddenly moved. It wasn't the gentle stirring she'd felt occasionally over the past weeks. This was a surge of power that ripped through her like lightning, burning away the numbness that had caged her wolf for months. Thora screamed, her back arching, as her wolf tore free of whatever had held it dormant. Her eyes snapped open, and the cave was suddenly bright as day. No, she was seeing in wolf vision, the darkness no longer absolute, every detail crystalline clear. Her hands against the stone floor glowed faintly, power pulsing beneath her skin in rhythms she'd never felt before. Ancient blood, the voice whispered. First line, original pack. You are not broken, daughter. You are awakening. Another contraction hit, but this time Thora's wolf rose to meet it, lending strength to her human body. She pushed herself upright, breathing through the pain, and felt power flooding her muscles. Okay, she gasped. Okay, we can do this. She could. They could. Her wolf hummed with certainty, no longer that broken, whimpering thing, but something magnificent and fierce. Thora stripped off her wet clothes with shaking hands, folding her cloak into a nest, and settled into the position her instincts demanded. The labor lasted hours. Thora lost track of time, lost in a world of pain and power and desperate determination. Her wolf guided her, whispering instructions, lending strength when her human endurance failed. And slowly, impossibly, she felt her daughter descending, moving into the world through sheer force of will. When the final contraction came, Thora bore down with everything she had, human strength and wolf power combined, and felt her daughter slip free in a rush of fluid and relief so intense she sobbed. The baby's cry echoed off the cave walls, strong and clear and furious at the cold. Thora gathered her daughter with trembling hands, pulling the infant against her chest, and felt her heart crack open with love so fierce it hurt. The baby was tiny, slippery, perfect, 10 fingers and 10 toes and a cap of dark hair plastered to her skull. And she glowed, actually, literally glowed, a soft golden light emanating from her skin. Astrid, Thora whispered, the name arriving fully formed. Your name is Astrid. Starlight. She wrapped her daughter in her cloak, tucking the baby against her skin for warmth, and felt her wolf settle with deep satisfaction. They'd done it. Against all odds, alone in a cave during a blizzard, they'd brought life into the world. Thora leaned back against the cave wall, exhausted and triumphant, and let herself cry. Tears of joy and relief, an overwhelming love for the tiny being nestled against her heart. She'd been called broken, weak, cursed. But tonight, alone in the darkness, she'd proved them all wrong. Tonight, she was exactly who she needed to be. The blizzard cleared at dawn, leaving the world buried in fresh snow. Thora woke to find Astrid sleeping peacefully, the baby's glow dimmed to a faint shimmer beneath her skin. She'd nursed twice during the night, latching on with surprising strength, and now slept with the absolute trust only newborns possessed. Thora felt different, changed. Her wolf paced contentedly in her mind, no longer silent, its presence a constant warmth. And her body, despite the trauma of birth, felt strong, whole. Like labor had burned away the last remnants of her brokenness and forged something new. She was cleaning Astrid with melted snow and strips torn from her spare clothes when she heard it. Voices outside the cave, male voices, multiple, coming closer. Thora's wolf snarled, surging to protective alertness. She wrapped Astrid tighter against her chest, tucking the baby inside her shirt, and searched desperately for anything she could use as a weapon. I'm telling you, the tracks lead here. That voice. Thora's blood ran cold. Garrett. She's in this cave. I can smell her. And the whelp? Another male, unfamiliar. If it's born, we take it. If not, we cut it out. Either way, that prophesied brat becomes our weapon, not the Alpha King's. Thora backed deeper into the cave, her mind racing. She had no weapon, no escape route, just her newly awakened wolf and a day-old baby. It would have to be enough. Shadows darkened the cave entrance as 4 wolves stepped inside, Garrett in the lead, his beta and 2 rogues flanking him. They were all bigger than her, stronger, armed with silver blades that gleamed in the morning light. Garrett smiled when he saw her, the expression predatory. Hello, Thora. Miss me? Stay back. Her voice was steady despite her terror. I'll fight you. With what? Your broken wolf? He laughed. You couldn't shift before, and you sure as hell can't now after birthing. You're helpless. Wrong. The word came out as a growl, and Thora felt her wolf surge forward. The shift tore through her faster than thought, bones reshaping, muscles expanding, fur erupting across her skin. Within seconds, a massive she-wolf stood in the cave, silver-furred and ancient, her eyes blazing with power. Garrett stumbled back. That's impossible. Thora lunged. The fight was brutal, desperate. She was exhausted from birth, outnumbered 4-1, protecting a newborn who couldn't defend herself. But her wolf was magnificent, moving with speed and strength she'd never possessed before, tearing into Garrett's warriors with savage precision. She took down one rogue, her jaws closing around his throat. Disabled the second with a strike to his hind leg. Garrett's beta came at her with a silver blade, and Thora twisted away, the weapon scoring her flank instead of her neck. Then Garrett shifted, his golden wolf circling for her baby. Thora intercepted him with a snarl that shook the cave walls. They collided in a tangle of fur and fangs, rolling across the stone floor. Garrett was bigger, heavier, but Thora fought with the fury of a mother protecting her child, and that made her unstoppable. She had him pinned, her teeth at his throat when she felt it, the mate bond igniting like wildfire, burning so hot in her chest she gasped. Thora! Flint's mental voice roared through their bond, and seconds later, chaos erupted at the cave entrance. A massive black wolf, Flint in his full alpha form, burst inside, followed by 10 others. His golden eyes found her immediately, blazing with relief and rage. And when he saw Garrett beneath her, his roar shook snow from the cave ceiling. The fight lasted seconds after that. Flint's warriors overwhelmed Garrett's rogues with brutal efficiency. Garrett himself tried to run, scrambling toward the entrance, but Flint caught him by the scruff and slammed him into the cave wall hard enough to crack stone. Thora shifted back to human, ignoring her nakedness, and scrambled to where she'd left Astrid. The baby was crying, furious at the noise and chaos but unharmed. Thora scooped her up, pressing kisses to her daughter's face, whispering reassurances. "You're safe. Mama's here. You're safe." Warmth draped across her shoulders. Flint shifted back to human and wrapping her in his cloak. His hands were gentle as he touched her face, her shoulders, checking for injuries with desperate thoroughness. "You're hurt," he said, seeing the gash on her side. "I'm fine." Thora leaned into his touch, hardly able to believe he was real. "How did you find me?" "The mate bond. It's been burning like a beacon since you left." His hand moved to cover hers where she held Astrid. "And I told you I'd follow. Did you think I was joking? I thought I was protecting you." "You can't protect me from myself, Thora. You're my mate. Where you go, I go. Always." Astrid chose that moment to stop crying, her dark eyes, so like Flint's amber, focusing on his face. She made a small sound, almost like recognition, and her glow intensified. The cave flooded with golden light. It poured from Astrid in waves, spreading across the walls, the floor, flowing over every wolf present. Garrett, still pinned by Flint's warriors, screamed as the light touched him. Not in pain but in revelation, his lies and manipulations laid bare by power that demanded truth. "She's not cursed," he gasped. "She's not. I lied. I lied because I knew what she was, and I was terrified. The prophecy said she'd remake the world, and I wanted control," Flint finished coldly. "You wanted to use her, to own her power. Please." "No." Flint's voice was final. "You rejected your mate, cast her out, tried to steal the child after she was born. Your pleas mean nothing." He looked at his warriors. "Take him to the border and make sure he understands what happens if he ever returns." They dragged Garrett away, still babbling apologies and excuses. The other rogues went with them, leaving Flint and Thora alone in the cave with their glowing daughter. Astrid's light faded gradually, settling back into that soft shimmer beneath her skin. She yawned, tiny and perfect, and nestled against Thora's chest. "She's beautiful," Flint whispered, his finger tracing Astrid's tiny hand. The baby's fingers curled around his immediately, gripping tight. "Just like her mother." "Flint." Thora's voice broke. "I'm sorry. I thought leaving was the right choice. I thought—" "I know what you thought." He cupped her face, his thumb brushing away her tears. "But you were wrong. We're stronger together. And Astrid, she's not a curse or a weapon. She's our daughter, and we'll raise her together. No prophecies, no politics, just us. Your kingdom. We'll be fine. I exiled the traitors. Celeste is managing things, and when we return, it'll be with our family intact." He pressed his forehead to hers. "Come home, Thora. Come home and be my queen. Not because of duty or politics, but because you love me the way I love you. I do love you." The words came easily now, no walls left to hide behind. "I love you so much it terrifies me." "Good." Flint smiled, brilliant and warm. "We'll be terrified together." He kissed her then, careful of the baby between them, and Thora felt the mate bond settle into place. Complete, unbreakable, exactly as it should be. When they finally pulled apart, Astrid was watching them both, her dark eyes knowing. She made a contented sound, and her glow pulsed once, soft and approving. "I think she agrees," Thora laughed through her tears. "Smart girl." Flint gathered them both in his arms. "Now let's go home.